This Torah class is brought to you by TorahAnytime.com.
Okay, we continue the subject that the Kloisenberger Rebbe opened our eyes, illuminated our eyes to the concept that the machlokes Beis Shammai and Beis Hillel as to when the Rosh Hashanah Lilanos is not an isolated machlokes that Beis Shammai says Rosh Chodesh Shvat and Beis Hillel says Tu B'Shvat, but it's dependent on their shitos in general. Kidivrei Beis Shammai as Bnei Yissaschar's Medayik. In other words, this is consistent with Beis Shammai shita in general, because Rabbi Eliezer is a Shmusi, he's a Talmud of Shammai, and Rabbi Eliezer says firstly that the world was created in Tishrei. So the world was created in Tishrei, and that means the first day of creation is Chaf Hei Elul. 40 days prior to that is Tu B'Av, and therefore Beis Shammai would not give any significance to Tu B'Shvat. It's Beis Hillel who says the world was created in Nisan. 5 days earlier began the process. 40 days before that is Tu B'Shvat. It's Beis Hillel going according to the Shita of Rabbi Yeshua who gives credence and importance and significance to Tu B'Shvat. So what the Kloisenberger Rebbe has taught us is that the machlokes of Rosh Chodesh Shvat or Tu B'Shvat is contingent on when you believe the world was created. And then he added that it's also contingent on when your opinion is regarding the Geula. So if your opinion, as Beis Hillel's opinion is, as Rabbi Shua's opinion is, that the world was created in Nisan, then the Geula the process would begin Chaf Hei Adar, and Tu B'Shvat would be the Heroya, and the conception of the idea would be Tu B'Shvat, as opposed to Rabbi Eliezer, who says the world was created in Tishrei, and the Geula will occur in Tishrei. Then Tu B'Av is the beginning of the process. Let's take it a step further. Why do you think Rabbi Eliezer holds that the Geula will happen in Tishrei? Beis Shammai says the Geula will happen in Tishrei. And Beis Hillel and Rabbi Shua say the Geula will happen in Nisan. Well, we said, in general, Beis Hillel is more lenient. Nisan is the month of Rachamim, and Tishrei is the month of Din. But let's explain it further. There's another machlokes Rabbi Eliezer and Rabbi Shua. And that machlokes is, do we have to do tshuva for Mashiach to come? It's a machlokes in the Gemara in Sanhedrin. Look inside Zayin Amabez. Ketanoi. Look at number 24. Rabbi Eliezer Oimer. Im Yisrael oisin tshuva nigolen. If Klal Yisrael does tshuva, will be redeemed. V'im lav ein nigolen. And otherwise we will not be redeemed. Rabbi Eliezer holds that for Klal Yisrael to be redeemed, we need to do tshuva. Amarle, so he said to him, Amarle Rabbi Shua, im ein oisin tshuva, ein nigolen. Really, if we don't do tshuva, we won't be redeemed. But don't worry. God will give us a king. Don't worry, we'll do tshuva. So the Achronim all asks, what's the machlokes? Even Rabbi Shua agrees you need to do tshuva. So what's the machlokes, Rabbi Eliezer and Rabbi Shua? So the Parish Harif and others basically say that they argue what kind of tshuva do you need to do. Rabbi Eliezer holds you need to do a real tshuva. You need to do a full-fledged tshuva. And you need to do tshuva me'ava. Rabbi Shua says, don't worry, God will just squeeze it out of us. He'll give us a king, he'll make us life miserable, and we'll do a shvachat tshuva, and that's good enough. In other words, they argue, how much of a tshuva do we need to do? So, I saw many sources. Happened to see last night for the first time in the Kloisenberger Rebbe, but I once saw this in Rabbi Warman's Sefer Oros HaPesach, that he suggested it, and he writes that he told this to Reb Gedalia Shor, and he says, let's see if we have it over here. Yes, that he told this over to Reb Gedalia Shor, and he told me that this is correct. And he told him he thinks when he was a kid he saw it in the writings of the Admar of Rajin. So he had quoted him before. But also, who says this? In the drashas of the Aruch HaShulchan. Aruch HaShulchan wrote drashas. Drashas Koil Ben Levi. They both say the same idea. You ready for this? Hold on to your socks. The machlokes Rabbi Eliezer and Rabbi Yeshua, whether you need to do tshuva for Mashiach to come, is l'shitase. When is Mashiach coming? Is it coming in Tishrei or is it coming in Nisan? Rabbi Eliezer, who holds that the world was created in Tishrei. But the Geula is coming in Tishrei. Why would the Geula come in Tishrei? Because that's the month of Tshuva. Tishrei is the month of Tshuva. It's preceded by Elul, Rosh Hashanah, Yom Kippur. Rabbi Lezer, who says the Geula is coming in Tishrei, is going L'shitasa because he holds, in order for Mashiach to come, you need to do Tshuva. So if Mashiach is coming in Tishrei, it's because you got to do Tshuva for Mashiach to come. But if the Geula is coming in Nisan, and over Nisan Nigal, over Nisan Asidan Ligael, we know when God redeemed us the first time, we didn't do no Tshuva. We were on the Kamat, the 50th level of Tumah. It was Hashem, B'sarusa de La'ela. He redeemed us even though we were Aram Ve'eria. So, since the Geula will come in Nisan, Rabbi Eliezer L'shitase holds, you don't have to do a real Tshuva. God will figure out, gives a Chanetza, how you're going to do some G'maisam Tovim and you can get out of the Gullus. So it's Rabbi Eliezer L'shitase, and it's Rabbi Yeshua L'shitase. And it's Kid Divrei Beis Shammai. In other words, Beis Shammai, who holds that Nisan is nothing, you got to do a full-fledged tshuva, he says, what are you telling me, Tu B'Shvat? Nothing happens on Tu B'Shvat, it's Echa B'Shvat. But Beis Hillel, who says the world was created in Nisan, because that's the month of Rachamim, and the Geula is going to take place in Nisan, which is the month of Rachamim, you don't really have to do a real tshuva. So if you don't have to do a real tshuva, then the beginning of the process of getting out of Golus, without doing real tshuva, is Tu B'Shvat. In other words, Tu B'Shvat is a very special day. Because if you had a Rosh Hashanah, and you didn't really take advantage, and you had a Yom Kippur, and you didn't really take advantage, and you had Seidah, Al-Pi Chassidus, have until Zois Chanukah, but you got to do something. But even if you didn't do anything, you still have a chance on Tu B'Shvat. You know why? Because Tu B'Shvat is the beginning of the process of not having to do anything. It's a different process. The first process was the process of real tshuva. But what if you're not on the madriga of doing a real tshuva? Then you're a Rabbi Eliezer-nik, then you're a Beis Hillel-nik, where B'Nisan Nigal, B'Nisan Asin Ligoel, even if you're a Mem Teshari Tumah, when does that process begin? Tu B'Shvat. So Hashem gave me Mamish, Matana, Min HaShamayim, She'inka, unbelievable. Mamish, I don't know where it came from. It's Mamish half of a fella. You ready for this? By the way, let's just read one place. Let's just read one place where we see these machlokes in our Talei Zabazah.
Remember, what do we have to do then to bring the Geula? If we don't have to do anything and it's going to be a Tu B'Shvat,
I don't know.
We're going to sit back and just let it happen?
I don't know. Look at number 2. Oh yeah, you're going to have a bad... This is not necessarily the pleasant process. We're going to have Melech, Shegzeros of Kashik Haman. Look, let's read it in Rabbi Warman's Sefer. He says it very nice. Look at number 27. V'ulai bazehu depligi Rabbi Lezer Rabbi Yeshua Sham. B'Rosh Hashanah. Rabbi Lezer svirale de'ein b'nei Yisrael nigalen. Rabbi Lezer holds b'nei Yisrael will not be nigal ela b'tshuva. Ulefi zeh shaper d'Yisrael yasin ligal b'tishrei. That's why he holds we're going to be redeemed in Tishrei. The Tishrei idan tshuva. It's the time of tshuva. Oisei chodesh neskav b'nei Yisrael chedo egav aser smei tshuva harei shema moir aleim that are designated for tshuva. Since he holds you need to do tshuva, that's why he holds we're going to be redeemed in Tishrei, the month of tshuva. The month of Lifnei Hashem Titaru. Masha'en came, the Shita of Rabbi Yeshua, he holds we're going to be redeemed even without Tishrei. Why? Because of the Tsar HaGolos. Because of the Rachamei Shamayim. That's why he says we're going to be redeemed in Nisan. The same way we're redeemed from Mitzrayim, even though we didn't do Tshuva and we were Meshugah B'Shara Tumah. So Mamish, half of a fellow. You ready? You never heard anything like this in your life. If you look at the Psukim at the end of the Torah, you look at the Simanim. So you have in Parshas Kisavai 122 psukim. Fine. You have Nitzavim 40 psukim. You have Vayelech, it says 70 psukim, but really it's a little confusing. There aren't 70 psukim in Vayelech. There are 30. Together. But they're 30 in Vayelech. And then you have in Hazinu 52. So Rav Moshe Wolfson in his Sefer Amunah Sitecha, he says, Mamish, Adavar Ayam V'Naira. There are different types of tshuva, he says. You know, and obviously these psukim you lay in at the end of the year during this man of tshuva. So, tzadikim gemurim, nechtavim, and nechtamim la'alter, all they need basically is 30 days. Right? 30 days from Rosh Hashanah, and they're good to go. That's Parshas Vayelech. Some people are beinanim, they take a little bit longer. They take until Yom Kippur. They squeeze it out. By the time Nila comes, they're ready to have a Chasima Toiva. That's Atam Nitzavim. Nitzavim is 40 psukim, right? From Rosh Chodesh Elul till Yom Kippur. But not everybody is on such a madrega. Some people take a little longer. So actually, if you add up Nitzavim, Vayelach, and then Hazinu,
Get 122, which is
122. Which is 122. What's 122? 122 days from Rosh Chodesh Elul. So 30, 60, 90, 120. That's 4 months. Elul, Tishrei, Cheshvan, Kislev, and then another couple days. Zois Chanukah. So those who are not Zoicha, unbelievable, on Rosh Hashanah, on Yom Kippur. Excuse me, I skipped. 1 second. So some people are Zoicha on Rosh Hashanah, 30. That's Vayelach. Some people are Zoicha on Yom Kippur. That's Nitzavim. Some people it takes them till after Hoshana Rabbah, right? Which is Shmini Atzeres, 52 days. So Shmini Atzeres is the 52nd day. So either they have Vayelach, either they have Nitzavim, or they have Hazinu. But some people, they need all of it. So if you add up 30 and 40 and 52, that's 122 days, that takes you to Zois Chanukah. By the way, one second. If you lane Vayelach, Nitzavim, and Hazinu, where does that take you to? The third day of Teves, Zois Chanukah, or it takes you to Parshas. What Parsha are you up to? V'zois habracha. That's the Remez to Zois Chanukah. V'zois habracha. So Rav Wolfson points out that his son-in-law, the Admiral of Stachin, Ramard Chazilber, pointed out that Hashem was already meichen Zois Chanukah before as well, because not only is Nitzavim, Vayelach, and Hazinu add up to 122, like you pointed out, Kisava is 122, so there's already an introduction to Zois Chanukah before. So now he's bothered by Akasha. What about V'zois HaBracha? And he says, look, V'zois HaBracha doesn't count. You know why V'zois HaBracha doesn't count? Because we have a tradition, Al Pida Arizal, there are 53 Parshios. V'zois HaBracha. So I think Rav Moshe Zakuta writes, it's called in the Chidah, that V'zois HaBracha is not laned on Shabbos, it's laned on Yom Tov, and therefore it doesn't count, and so it's not counted. So all you need to worry about is Vayelach, and you need to worry about Nitzavim. Vayelach is till Rosh Hashanah, Nitzavim gets you till Yom Kippur, Hazinu gets you to Shmini Atzeres, and then all of the above get you to Zois Chanukah. But I want to say, no, V'zois HaBracha counts. You know why? Because if you add up the psukim of V'zois HaBracha 41, Tu B'Shvat. 41 days after Zois Chanukah is Tu B'Shvat. Meaning, and where does that take you to? The end. Why the end? Because that brings the Kates. That's the beginning of the end of days. That's the beginning of the Geula, and that's your last chance. Because if you don't take advantage of the Zman of real tshuva, which is Rosh Hashanah, Yom Kippur, and Zois Chanukah, you have still one more opportunity. One more opportunity, yeah. You know what this opportunity is called? It's the cycle, it's the process of Rabbi Yeshua. Rabbi Elazar's process is you got to do a real tshuva. So you have a Rosh Hashanah, you have a Yom Kippur, you have a Shmini Atzeres, you have a Zois Chanukah, you got to do at least a real tshuva. But now we're starting a new process. This is a process of V'ad Eroim Ve'eria. This is a process of, even without Torah mitzvahs, even without a real tshuva, even on Mem Teshari Tuma, the beginning of that process begins on Tu B'Shvat, and Tu B'Shvat is exactly 41 days after Zois Chanukah. And when you get to the end of the 41 days, what does that give you? Chazak, v'nis chazek. It gives you tremendous chizuk that we could endure the galus, because we know that even if we're not zoicha to do a real tshuva, but lamaisa, v'nisan nigalu, v'nisan asidin ligoel, even without the 30 days of Vayelach and the 40 days of Nitzavim and the 52 days of Hazinu and the 122 days of Kisavai, you still have another opportunity, 41 days till Tu B'Shvat, so we should be Zoicha this Tu B'Shvat. 40 days before, Arbam Yom Koidem Yitzira of the Gula Shlema, it should be Oila B'Machshavta, Yishel Habari Oilam, Ligolas Yisrael, and Al Yedei Achilas Peiros, Ein Lecha Kates, Magula Mizu. There's no greater siman of the Gula Shlema. We should talk about Zoicha, to be as God said, that can hear Yamino. Amen.
Rabbi, look at the siman of the Sukkim for Zos HaBracha.
What's the siman?
Goel.
Geuel.
Hashem will be, right, will give us the Geula. So
what is?
Just confirms what you said.
Very good.
Right?
All right, we kept that on. We're keeping that on. Okay. Okay, shkoyach.
You've just experienced another Torah class brought to you by TorahAnytime.com.